At the end of the summer, my parents were on vacation somewhere in Mexico, so I sent a text message to my girlfriend Maria, asking if she was free for the weekend so we could spend some time together. She replied shortly after, saying she'd love to, and that we'd talk about the details at school. We met at our usual spot near the cafeteria in the center of the school. During breakfast, we chatted a bit, but we didn't make much progress. She mainly talked about how excited she was to have some alone time with me. We spent most of the time walking together to our classes, talking about the things we planned to do, things like drinking beer or liquor, sitting by the fire, hugging each other while some music played. After that, we'd just see where the moment would take us. By the end of the day, we agreed that I would pick her up at her house, and I would drive us to the cabin. She was jumping with joy, saying she couldn't wait to kiss me and practically skipping toward her bus. She sent me a message late at night, saying she was so excited she couldn't sleep and that she had been talking to her friends on the bus about our plan, and they were excited for her too. But she also mentioned that the bus driver had stopped her to tell her that part of the woods wasn't the safest. He told her that, supposedly, a boy had been murdered there by the old man who lived on the other side of the lake where we would be staying. I told her not to worry too much because no one could enter the property due to the electric fence my dad had installed, just in case when he and my mom would go there. That reassured her. Besides, we were only going to be there for the weekend from Friday to Saturday night. We'd be fine. She calmed down and we said goodnight, especially since we had school the next day. The following morning, we met again at our usual spot. Her friends joined us and were bombarding us with questions like where we planned to get the alcohol and if we had protection. I didn't feel comfortable telling them, so I just shrugged and smiled while extending my hand to help Maria up from her seat and take her to class. We didn't want to get into details about what we had planned for that night, wanting everything to feel as natural as possible. Maria mentioned the neighboring cabin again, and once more, I did what I could to calm her down and assure her that we'd be fine. The only way they could see us would be if they had a good camera to look through the windows, so we'd keep them closed. I tried to reassure her. All right, that sounds good. I just want to make sure we don't get caught and that something doesn't end up going viral on social media, she said. We ended the day excited about the upcoming weekend and said our goodbyes at our usual spot near the buses. Did you feel a chill down your spine at any point today? She asked me. Not really. The only ones I felt were in the computer room, but that was probably because of the air conditioning or something, I said. I just had a strange feeling, she said timidly, getting closer to me. You're probably just nervous with all the excitement we've been talking about these last few days. I wouldn't be surprised if you were a bit anxious, I said, pulling her close for a hug. That's true, man, you've really helped me calm down. It's one of the reasons I love you, she said quietly as she snuggled into my arms. At that moment, I could swear the school lights flickered or something flashed, but I just closed my eyes and hugged her tightly. I love you too. Don't worry, we'll have fun. I kissed her forehead and we went our separate ways. Finally, the day arrived, and we were in the car on our way. The drive wasn't too exciting. We joked about the songs on the radio and laughed a lot, enjoying each other's company. When we entered the wooded area, the sunlight filtered through the treetops, lighting up some bushes. Some light filtered through and fell on the forest floor. It's beautiful, Maria exclaimed as the car sped down the trail. Just wait until we get to the cabin. I smiled and chuckled a little as the car moved along the dirt road. A few minutes passed while she looked out the window, and I drummed my fingers to the rhythm of the music. Night was beginning to fall. The sun was almost gone when we arrived in front of the cabin. Maria, excited to see the inside, jumped out of the car while I unloaded our things. She ran inside and left the door wide open. It's amazing in here. It's almost like those wooden cabins you see in video games and movies, she exclaimed, laughing as she spun in a full circle in the living room. I couldn't help but laugh as I carried her 2 suitcases and my backpack. Should we start the fire outside or inside first? I asked her as I set the suitcases down by the door. Outside we can make s'mores and enjoy the lake while it's not too cold and there are few mosquitoes, she replied. Sounds good. Why don't you stay inside while I go get some firewood and light the fire, I suggested. She nodded and began unpacking the bags while I stepped outside. The night deepened and I had almost finished gathering all the firewood. I saw a deer, which was pretty exciting, but then I saw another flash in the distance. I quickly turned my head, but it was just out of my field of vision. I scanned the area, but I didn't see anyone, so I continued toward the cabin. As I was lighting the fire by the lake, I saw Maria walking toward me. "No weird bugs yet," I joked as she quickly shone her flashlight on her feet. "Be careful, I don't want you to break a foot, we just got here," I told her. She laughed and sat beside me. "Do you see that?" She pointed across the lake. "The old man lives there, and someone told me the reason he lives here alone is because he killed a boy who was around here. Can you believe that?" she said. I played along pretending to be scared, which surprised and slightly scared her. "Let me guess, did he use a chainsaw and wear a mask too?" I leaned toward her, still pretending to be scared. She nudged my shoulder. "No, seriously, imagine if that were true. He could come here or spy on us in a boat, right?" she asked nervously, gripping the flashlight tighter. We both looked toward the water, watching his cabin. The lights turned on. We looked at each other and started laughing. In the middle of the laughter, we heard a click. "What was that?" She stopped and quickly turned her head toward the edge of the woods. "Some animal, honey, nothing to worry about. After all, we're in the middle of the woods," I said. She began to calm down while I pulled out the bag of marshmallows. "Let's roast them and relax," I told her. We enjoyed what was left of the fire, eating a couple of s'mores and drinking a beer or two while we talked. After dousing the fire with lake water, we headed inside. We snuggled in the shower, washing the smell of smoke from our skin, and ended the night in bed, tired from so much laughter. I could hear some creaks and rustling outside, but I didn't pay much attention to them as I fell asleep. When I woke up, I turned over and saw Maria still sleeping. I kissed her forehead as I got up to make breakfast eggs and bacon, like you would on a little vacation. I heard her get up quickly. "Come here and look at this," she said, as she ran down the hall with her phone in hand. It was a photo of the cabin on her social media account. "Nice angle," I said as I turned the bacon in the pan. "Yeah, but I didn't take it," she said. "What do you mean you didn't take it? Isn't that your account?" I asked as I started setting the plates on the table. "Yes, it's my account, but I didn't take that picture. Don't get me wrong, I've taken some pictures of my outfits and the inside of the cabin, but I didn't take that photo. Someone else posted it on my account," she explained, sitting down and beginning to tremble. "What if it was the old man? What if this is a warning?" she continued as she tried to pick up the fork I offered with her trembling hands. "I'm sure you're the one who took it and just forgot. You were pretty excited when we got here," I tried to reassure her. "I'm telling you, it wasn't me. But it had to be the old man. He's the only one who could have known about the fence around the house, especially since he lives here. What if he's watching us right now?" she said, as she got up from the table, visibly shaken. "Relax, honey, relax. I doubt it was the old man. How could he have posted a picture on your account? He's an older person. It had to have been you who took it, okay? Just relax and sit down, please. You're going to want to eat before we go on our nature walk," I told her as I took a fork full of eggs to my mouth and sipped from my coffee cup with the other hand. "A nature walk? Yes, that sounds good. You're right. I must have forgotten, I'm sorry," she said as she sat down, still nervous, and started picking at the bacon on her plate. We went for a walk along the trail, seeing some brightly colored flowers on the bushes and some animals here and there. We walked most of the day, just relaxing and enjoying our time together before heading back to the cabin. "We still have about an hour before sunset. Do you want to light the fire inside tonight? Maybe bring out some of the whiskey we have stashed," I said as I leaned in and gave her a little nudge with my body. "Yeah, it sounds like it could get really warm inside," she replied with a flirty smile. "Go get the rest of the firewood from last night, and I'll look for the old whiskey." We split up at the cabin door, and she went inside while I went to fetch the firewood. The sun was about to set when we finished dinner, and we heard a soft knock at the door. I got up, looked out the window and around the door, but I didn't see anything unusual, so I went back and we started lighting the fire. We undressed just enough to stay comfortable but still modest and toasted to our relationship. Just as we did, Maria jumped back. "There's someone at the window," she exclaimed. I quickly turned around to check the window, but no one was there, nothing visible. "What are you talking about? Are you already drunk?" "It's your first glass," I joked, trying to keep the mood relaxed. "No, seriously, there was someone at the window. I'm worried. I think we should leave," she said, trembling again, just like that morning. "Are you sure? We just started our night. We can relax a bit more with another glass if you want," I told her, trying not to sound scared and excited at the same time. "No, we've only had one glass. We should be sober enough to get in the car and head back to town right now. There was definitely someone there, and I don't want to stay to see what happens," she said, quickly getting up, visibly terrified. "Sorry, but I don't want to become one of those horror movie people who end up nailed to the wall as decoration," she added as she started running down the hall to hastily grab her things. I put out the fire and grabbed the clothes we had left in the living room before cleaning up the rest. Just as I was about to clear the glasses, I heard a loud noise of shattering glass coming from the bedroom window. "No, no, no, I'm out of here," Maria shouted as she grabbed what she could and ran out the door. I followed her closely to the car and we quickly drove to the police station, demanding that they check the property and reassure us that what we experienced wasn't just paranoia. We waited all night at the station waiting for the officers to return. The receptionist suggested we go home and that they would call us to let us know what the sheriff found, but we insisted on staying until they had news. A couple of hours passed and the sun had already risen when the sheriff walked in with a cup of coffee in his hand. "We didn't find anything around the property, except for what was already inside the house," he said, handing us a note and continuing. "A broken window and a foam skull on the floor with a note pinned to the door." We quickly read the note. "I didn't take this picture. Nice angle, honey. Don't worry, relax a bit more with another glass if you want." We froze as we read it. They were the same things we had said to each other over the past few days at the cabin. "We also found this pinned to the front door," said the sheriff's deputy on the left, handing us a photo of us sitting by the fire, pointing toward the cabin across the lake. There was a single line written at the bottom of the photo. "Be careful, I don't want you to break a foot." Let me guess, did he also use a chainsaw and wear a mask? I'm a 25-year-old woman named Jennifer. This happened to me back in 2015 when I was just a 16-year-old teenager working my first job at GameStop. Now, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, which, for those who don't know, isn't really the best area to be in. Fortunately for me, the specific area where I lived and worked was a decent part of the city. It wasn't super bad, but it wasn't very good either. Just a regular area, I guess, with the occasional car thefts and those drug addicts you had to watch out for. Anyway, I had just gotten this job about a week ago, and before getting it, I was applying practically everywhere a teenager could work. I was really eager to start making my own money so I could buy my first car, which I had always wanted. A Honda Civic, since they're super reliable and generally cool cars. I had always had to depend on my mom, dad, or brother to take me to work, and I wanted to have my own car to avoid that. Finally, I got the job at GameStop, and I was super excited because it was the place where I most wanted to work. I've always loved video games since I was a kid, playing my first Nintendo 64 or PlayStation 1, so I was thrilled to work somewhere I'd be selling games and consoles to other gamers. Eventually, I started my first shift, which was on a Saturday at noon. It went pretty well. It was interesting to see what the other side of things was like selling games and doing trade-ins. Most customers were little kids or guys in their early 20s. Everything went well, and my shift was about to end at 8 p.m., which was closing time, when the last customer of the night walked into the store. I did the typical greeting. "Hello, welcome to GameStop. We're about to close, but if you need help with anything, just let me know." He was a young guy who looked about my age. He was just browsing the store, looking at different games for different consoles. A little weird, but not too much. I know several people who have different consoles. It's just that most people who come into the store usually know exactly what they want, grab it, and leave in a reasonable amount of time. Not that I'm criticizing the guy for browsing. It was just that it was almost closing time, and it was a bit odd to come in and look around like that, but whatever. Eventually, he comes up to the counter, gives me a small smile, and asks if I can look up an old game in the system for him. He said he saw that we had it in stock online, but he couldn't find it, I told him. Sure, no problem. One of the things I was taught when I started the job was that older pre-owned games sometimes aren't always on the shelves, so I'd have to search for it and see if we had it. And if we did, it should tell me on the computer exactly where it's located. I know, kind of weird, but whatever. I do that and see that we do have it. But as I'm looking it up, I get a better view of the guy now that he's closer to the counter, and I actually recognize him as someone who goes to my high school. His name is Edgar. Not only that, but he's in one of my classes. I don't think I'd ever interacted with him at all, and I had never seen him socialize with anyone else, so I guess he's the quiet loner type. Well, anyway, I found the game he wanted, which was an old Tekken game on PlayStation 1. I'm not going to judge. I have some old games I like too, so hey, we all like different things. I complete the transaction, tell him to enjoy the game and have a good night. He smiles and leaves, but not before turning back and saying to me, "You're too beautiful to work here." That caught me completely off guard, and it was the most he talked during our entire interaction. It definitely gave me chills. Not because the guy was ugly or anything. He was actually a decent-looking, normal guy. There was just something strange about him. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Let's call it a gut feeling. Well, my shift ended after he left. I closed up with my manager and called my mom to pick me up. I went home without thinking much more about the encounter and then went to bed. Later that night, I woke up the next day and got ready for my next shift on Sunday. The same shift as before, from 12 to 8. This time it was a pretty slow day, with just a few customers here and there. There were some interesting characters, though. One guy came in with about 50 games to trade in, and literally, every game was scratched. We had to turn him down, and yeah, he wasn't happy. But we can't accept defective products. There was also a kid who was about 10 years old who came in and traded a bunch of games to get enough store credit to buy a PS4. Now that I respect. That was it until I heard the sound of the door opening again, indicating that a customer had come in just before closing. Instinctively I said, "Hi, welcome to GameStop," before looking up, and then I see it's the same loner guy from the night before. What the hell? Is this guy really going to do this again? That was what I was thinking. This time, though, he didn't do the same thing as before where he browsed a bunch of different games. He was looking in a specific area, while occasionally giving me a quick glance and doing this strange half-smile. It was, to say the least, weird. I tell him we close in 5 minutes, and he just says, "Thanks," and leaves. That's when I started to think that maybe he really was a weird guy. But at the same time, I was tired that night and didn't want to overthink things, so I tried to forget about it and once again called my mom to pick me up to go home. So I'll fast forward a bit. A few weeks have passed since the first encounters with the loner guy, and I started noticing him more in class now. I was paying a lot more attention to him than I had before knowing who he was or meeting him at work. I would constantly see him watching me, whether it was in class, in the hallway, in the cafeteria, wherever. I'd see him looking at me and always in the same areas where I was. Now, by no means am I suggesting that I own the place. It's a damn school, of course we're going to be in the same areas sometimes, and that's fine, but it was the way he looked at me when he saw me. It was like I was his prey or something. Well, one night I'm working again, and it's around 5 p.m. when the store phone rings. I answer and say, "Hello, GameStop Memphis, how can I help you?" And all I hear is the typical weird, creepy breathing, like you've seen in horror movies. I think the fact that it was happening in real life made it a little creepier. I waited a few more minutes to see if they'd say anything else, then I hung up. I expected the phone to ring again immediately after, but it didn't. Okay, I guess they got the hint, I told myself. A few hours passed and the phone rang again. "Hello, GameStop Memphis, how can I help you?" It was the same person, breathing into the phone again, so I said, "Well, we're about to close. Hope you had fun with this because no one else will be here to answer your weird, creepy calls." Then the person speaks. "But I can call you directly anytime I want, Jennifer. Your number is still this number, right?" Then he recited my cell phone number. At this point, I was really terrified. I hung up immediately and told my manager about the strange calls. I had told him earlier about the first one because he always asks how the calls are going and what the customer needed, so I always keep him informed about what's happening. I told him we received another weird call, and it seems like it's someone who knows me and is playing a strange prank on me, and that they have my real number. My manager was really understanding. He told me that the next time we get a call, he'll answer it himself or have another coworker answer it, and that, for now, I could take a break from answering phone calls. He also promised me that for a few weeks he would only schedule me to work during the day. I was really grateful for that, but I didn't like losing hours. I really, really wanted to buy a car and stop relying on other people to take me to work and other places. Although I was grateful for not having to answer calls now or work nights, there was still an unsettling thought in the back of my mind. The caller has my number. They can call me whenever they want. And that really scared me a lot. I tried to continue my life as normally as possible, going to school, going to work, just living my life, hoping it was just a prank and that it wouldn't go any further. Well, that couldn't have been further from my reality or what would soon become my reality. One night I was at my friend Kiara's house, and we decided we wanted to go out for a while, so we decided to go to Sonic Drive-In and order some milkshakes, burgers, and just relax and grab something to eat. We were eating in the patio area, not in her car. We ordered our food, and while we were waiting, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello, Jennifer, do you remember me? I was trying to give you some space since our last call, and I think enough time has passed. How are you? How's GameStop? What did you order to eat at Sonic? I love their mozzarella sticks with an Oreo milkshake." "Yeah, that's my favorite. And you, beautiful?" I felt a knot in my stomach. I immediately lost my appetite for the food we had just ordered. Tears started streaming down my face, and I told Kiara that after they brought us our food, we needed to leave immediately. She didn't understand what was going on, but she could tell from my reaction and tears that something was wrong. So after the food arrived, we grabbed it, got into her car, and she started taking us back to her house. While we were in the car, I started telling Kiara that I think I have a stalker, that someone has been calling me as a stranger, how it all started at work, and now they're calling my cell phone and seem to know where I am. As you can imagine, she was just as scared about this as I was, but what scared us most was that he had my number and knew my location. People don't have that kind of information just like that, so I started thinking, could someone who works at Sonic be the stalker? No, that doesn't make sense. I mean, yeah, it's possible, but that would be really weird. I even thought about social media. I didn't post anything today on Instagram or my Snapchat story, so they couldn't have found my location through me. I asked Kiara if she had posted anything today about us hanging out, and she said that she had. She posted on Facebook that we were hanging out today, and she also posted on her Snap story, Sonic with the best friend. I guess I somehow missed when she took a picture of Sonic while we were there, so yeah, I guess that's how he knew where I was. Now Kiara was panicking and hyperventilating because this creep also had access to her social media. She was apologizing profusely for posting our location on Snap, but I told her it wasn't her fault. Friends should be able to do those things without receiving strange calls or having some creep be a stalker. I told her that until further notice, maybe we should set our accounts to private and even temporarily deactivate them until we figure out who this guy is. Kiara agreed, so we set our accounts to private and also stopped posting where we were. We weren't going to deactivate our accounts just yet. We wanted to see how far this stalker would take things. We both continued living our lives as we normally did. I kept working at GameStop, going to school and socializing, and Kiara did too. A few days went by, and I asked Kiara if the creepy stalker had contacted her since the Sonic incident, to which she said no, that everything had been normal for her. Well, that gave me some relief. He wasn't after Kiara too, he was after me. He was just using Kiara's social media to follow me, which makes sense. Well, a week goes by and it happens. I got another call from an unknown number. For those wondering why I didn't track the calls, well, I did. And the calls were coming from a random call app, so it was a dead end anyway. He calls again and I answer but don't say anything. I just listen. He starts with the same routine as always, just breathing into the phone. Then he starts talking. "Jennifer, I know you're there." "Come on, don't be like that." So I respond, "I don't know what your damn problem is, but you have serious issues, man. Calling and stalking a teenage girl is just disgusting and insane. You need help." Jenny, relax. You should be happy that you have someone who cares so much about you. I'm putting a lot of effort into being a part of your life to connect with you. You should really appreciate it, Jennifer. It would be a real shame if something happened to your best friend Kiara, or that cute little cat you have. What's his name again? Sylvester, right? Like the one from Looney Tunes who always tries to eat Tweety, right? Look, Jennifer, I know you. I know a lot about your life. I just couldn't keep listening. I hung up and ran to the bathroom and started throwing up. I was hysterical. This was too much. It was sick. It was wrong. My mom, dad, and older brother Daniel had apparently heard me screaming on the phone as well as the sound of my retching, and came to see what was wrong. "Jennifer, sweetie, are you okay? What's going on? We heard the yelling," my mom said. "Give me a second. I'm not feeling well," I said. I finished vomiting, cleaned up, and came out to see my parents and brother, all in my room with worried, distressed faces. "What the hell is going on, Jennifer?" Daniel said. "Nothing. Don't worry about it," I said, not wanting to trouble them. "Forget that, Jennifer. We heard you." "What the hell is going on? Tell me," Daniel said with a slightly aggressive tone. "No, it's my problem. I don't want to drag you all into this," I said. "Sweetie, you're scaring me. Please talk to me." My mom started crying, growing more and more worried. I broke down. I completely fell apart and started crying uncontrollably, muttering incoherent phrases. "It's scary," he calls, "he won't stop." My parents wrapped me in their arms trying to calm me down, and eventually they did. My eyes and head hurt from all the crying and vomiting, but I finally felt good enough to tell them the whole story. Ever since I started working at GameStop, I've been getting weird calls from someone, and now they're calling my real number and making vague threats, threatening to hurt my best friend in Sylvester, who is the light of my life. I've had him since he was a kitten. He's everything to me. My parents' faces went from sad to angry. They asked me why I had waited so long to tell them about this, that this wasn't something I should have been facing alone, to which Daniel agreed, along with some other annoyed statements saying how he was going to find this guy and make him pay, even though we didn't even know the identity of this guy. My parents said that first thing in the morning they'd take care of this, but for now I needed to rest. They also took my phone for the night in case the creep decided to call again and upset me. I was okay with them taking my phone. The guy was becoming a nightmare and I really wanted to forget about him. So I agreed and did my best to rest. I didn't get much rest, but I felt a little better in the morning. I got up and went downstairs to see my parents and Daniel sitting at the table with serious faces. I asked if there had been any calls during the night, to which they told me yes, but that I shouldn't worry about it right now. "Just go to school and live your life for now. We got this, Jen, don't worry," Daniel told me. That made me smile. Daniel hadn't called me Jen since I was a little girl. It made me happy to know that my big brother cared so much about me. Honestly, we hadn't been that close since we both grew up, but I realized that when things get tough, I know he's got my back. And of course, I've got his back too. So I went to school, and everything was normal. Daniel actually picked me up from school that day. As we were driving back home, he started saying to me, "Look, I've got a friend at the University of Ole Miss. He's an incredibly smart guy. He's into all that hacking and computer stuff, things I don't know anything about. I think he could actually find this guy who's been bothering you. Mom and Dad said they're okay with us going this route if you're okay with it too. But I wanted to ask you first. From my perspective, we need to find this stalker, or he's not going to stop. Even if you change your number, he already knows who you are, Jennifer. He knows who we are. We need to take his power away, and the way to do that is by finding out who he is." I told him I agreed. "Let's find this sicko and put an end to this." He agreed and called his friend, giving him the green light to start investigating the numbers and see if he could figure out who was causing all this hell in my life. Some of you might be asking, why didn't you just go to the police? Well, first of all, we did. We tried going to the police first, and they weren't much help. They said it wasn't worth their time, that it seemed like just a prank, and that without real evidence or the identity of who was doing this, there wasn't much they could do. We also went to our phone company, the wonderful AT&T, and they weren't much help either, saying that due to privacy policy blah 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 they couldn't tell us who was harassing me. But deep down, I honestly think they were all just too clueless to figure it out. Anyway, now it's a waiting game. I wait and see if we can find this jerk. Meanwhile, I keep working at GameStop. The timeline of all this might seem a bit confusing, but at this point in the story, it's been a few months. And despite all the hell I've been experiencing, though none of it was related to GameStop, I never missed any shifts or took any additional time off. I ended up getting a raise, which I didn't expect at all after just a few months of working there, but I think my manager really felt sorry for me and just wanted to help. So yeah, that was cool, one step closer to that Honda Civic. Hell yeah, I told myself. Well, everyone's heard the saying, things will get a lot worse before they get better, right? Well, it's true, things were getting better, but it wasn't the happy ending yet. Another phone call happened. I let it ring for a few seconds. It was like a scene straight out of a horror movie. I was staring at the phone with a sense of impending doom, just horrified. It felt like everything was in slow motion. Jennifer, are you going to answer?" My coworker Marcus snapped me back to reality. "Oh, sorry," I responded before answering the phone. "Hello, GameStop Memphis, how can I help you?" "Hi, Jennifer, it's been a while. How are you? I noticed you changed your number, but don't fool yourself. That's not going to stop me. Nothing will, and one day you'll be mine. You'll notice me, just like I notice you every day." Then something clicked in my head. "Wait, what did you say? You notice me every day? You go to my school?" I asked him. Then the call disconnected. He messed up big time, and he knew it. He gave away a key detail, and now I knew it was someone from my school, maybe even from my class. Then it all fell into place. The guy from before, the weird loner guy. It had to be him. From when he told me I was beautiful to the calls starting right after, it all lined up. This was our guy. I called my brother immediately and told him I think I figured out who it is. It's this weird loner guy from school. You're not going to believe what he said, I told him. Jennifer, that doesn't make any sense, he responded. What do you mean it doesn't make sense? All the pieces fit. This guy was a customer at GameStop, and right after that was when the call started. I told him, now angry because I thought he didn't believe me. Look, I'll explain it on the way home. I don't want to say it over the phone, he told me. He came to pick me up from school, and we ended up talking about everything in the car. He told me that his friend had found the identity of the person who had been making the calls, but it wasn't the weird loner guy from my school. It was someone completely different, and now I was completely lost and confused. So my friend did his magic, and well, it turns out the person who's been doing all this actually lives in the neighborhood. Not only that, he doesn't even go to your school. He's a high school dropout who stays home all day, Daniel said. I panicked. What the hell is going on here? I don't understand any of this, but my brother came up with a plan to confront the guy. Tomorrow I'm going to confront him when he takes out the trash. You're going to stay in the car and I'm going to charge at him and get answers, he told me. I started thinking it was a really bad idea, but to hell with it. The guy had been making my life hell. Screw him. So I told my brother I agreed. Fast forward to the next day. Just as my brother planned, we parked across the street from his house, me sitting low in the passenger seat, and my brother gets out and charges at the guy as soon as he's taking out the trash. He grabs him and throws him to the ground, demanding answers, asking why the hell he thinks it's okay to stalk young girls. Dude, what the hell are you talking about? I haven't stalked anyone, the guy said. As you can imagine, this infuriated me and I just couldn't help it. I ran out of the car toward the guy, yelling at him to stop pretending. We knew it was him. What are you talking about? Who the hell are you and why are you attacking me? He asked. You're the one who's been calling my sister and being a creepy stalker for months, Daniel said. Man, I genuinely have no idea who you guys are, but if you don't let go of me, you're going to have bigger problems, the guy said. At that moment, a huge guy like 6 feet 6 inches tall came out and knocked my brother to the ground, freeing who we thought was the stalker. What business do you guys have with my little brother? If you touch him again, I'll break your neck, the guy said. Well, maybe if you taught your little brother not to be a jerk stalking young girls, he wouldn't need you to come save his ass, my brother snapped back. The tall, muscular guy paused a bit, surprised by what Daniel had just said, then turned and looked at his own brother, asking what the hell was going on. That's what's going on, bro. I genuinely have no idea what's going on here. I was just taking out the trash and then they attacked me, accusing me of stalking their sister, the guy said. Look, obviously there's been some kind of misunderstanding here. Let's all calm down and talk this out, the older brother said to us. If you're willing to trust, we can go to the backyard and see if we can figure this shit out. All right, I agree, I said. And Daniel agreed too. We went to the backyard and sat down at a table. We basically explained everything that had been happening over the past few months to the two brothers and how, after tracing the numbers, they all led back to this guy. The younger brother of the two said, That doesn't make sense. I would never do something as dirty as that to anyone, let alone a young girl. Wait, he said, then paused with a look of surprise. I have a friend. He's a weird guy, you know. A few months ago, he contacted me out of nowhere asking if he could borrow my laptop. He said he needed it for school stuff. I have a lot, and I'm kind of a tech nerd, so I just told him, yeah, sure, whatever. And I lent it to him. It's been a few months, but it seems to match the timeline of when all this weird stuff started. All right, who's your friend? What's his name? Daniel asked. It's Edgar, he said. Edgar, that's the guy from my class. The same guy who used to come into GameStop, the same guy I thought it was just yesterday. All right, here's what you're going to do. You're going to call your friend Edgar and get him to come here and bring back the laptop you need, and then we're going to confront him, Daniel said. The guy agreed and called Edgar. He told him he needed his laptop back, but Edgar started arguing, saying he still needed it, but the guy managed to convince him to bring it back. He did. We set up a plan. My brother and I hid while waiting for Edgar to arrive and go to the backyard, and then we would confront him. Everything went exactly as we planned, except we actually got a little help. Edgar arrived, went to the backyard and handed the laptop back to the younger brother, and then Daniel, the older brother, and I charged at Edgar and pinned him down. You're caught, "You've got nowhere to run or hide," I told him. Edgar then gave me a sinister smile. "Well, I guess the act had to end at some point," he said, to which my brother then punched him in the face and said, "Shut your eyes. You don't have the right to look at her after the sick games you've played." Both brothers had words for him too. "For your little stunt, my brother almost got seriously hurt. Who the hell does something like this? Are you an aspiring Ted Bundy?" One said, "Yeah, man, what the hell? I almost got my ass kicked because of you. Why did you do this?" "Honestly, I don't even want to know, but we're done. Our friendship is over after this. I never want to hear from you again," the younger brother said before going into his house. "I don't know what he's going to do to you, but whatever it is, you definitely deserve it for what you put this poor girl through," the older brother said. "You're going to have to pay for what you've done somehow, kid. So choose an arm or a leg." "What, you're going to cut off a limb?" Edgar started screaming and crying. "No, shut up already. I'm just going to break one. This is your punishment," my brother said. "Jennifer, go home. I'll follow you soon." I did just that. I left and started walking home, which was only a street away, and after about 10 steps I heard Edgar screaming in pain. I'm not sure what he chose, but I know it hurt a lot. It's just crazy that it had to come to this. He could have just left me alone, but no, he kept stalking me and making threats about my best friend and my cat, and then someone else almost got blamed. What a psychopath. Well, Daniel eventually got home and came in with the laptop, which confused me. "So the brothers think we should keep this and take it to the police. Apparently the idiot didn't delete the call apps he used to call you, so we have evidence of all the calls," Daniel said. "We told our parents everything that had happened, except for the part about breaking the guy's arm, which I later learned he chose the arm, so at least he can still walk. So yeah, but we left that part out. Anyway, we went back to the police recounting the whole story and brought the laptop to the station. This time, the police seemed interested now that we had proof. They saw how Edgar had made several calls to me, and they all matched the calls on my phone. But not only that, he was also calling other girls. It was disgusting. In short, they had to call Edgar's family and tell them everything that had happened, which was actually just his mom. You could see she was completely ashamed of her son's behavior. We pressed charges for harassment. The word also got out at school about what Edgar did, and well, let's just say things didn't go well for him going forward, and he became even more of a loner. My story has a happy ending, though. No more creepy calls, and after a year of working at GameStop, I saved enough money to buy that Honda Civic I always wanted. And even though the calls and everything I went through was a horrible experience, I'm really glad I stuck it out at that job. It taught me what it means to persevere through things and that hard work can get you cool things. But I also learned something else through all of this. Never underestimate the love and protection of a big brother for his little sister. Seriously, to my brother Daniel, who had my back through all of this, thank you, bro. I couldn't have asked for a better brother. I'm an American woman in my 20s and a francophile fluent in French, but not a native speaker. Since 2011, I've been corresponding with an eccentric Frenchman I met after he posted a clip from a super rare movie on YouTube. We had a lot of common interests, and we eventually met in person so he could give me the film on a USB drive. He also gifted me a book from his personal library that he thought I'd like. We kept in touch, and recently, I returned the favor by buying him a DVD on Amazon. It's been a good relationship, our conversations are enriching, and he's a good guy, just a bit weird like me. He changes his online identity a bit. His real name is Joel, but sometimes he uses an Italian last name and a fictional character from Gothic literature. He's very into dark romanticism. I first met him on Facebook under the character's name, and for a while he also used that name in his email address, though last summer he started using an address based on his real name. So it was a mix of the two. He's hard to keep track of because he often disappears from Facebook without warning, and then reappears just as quickly. He's gone through 2 or 3 different accounts, all using the fictional character's name. So it wasn't a surprise when he disappeared sometime last fall, and I just stayed alert to see if I'd find him again. I'd occasionally do a search, and one day I found an account with his real name, although not with the fictional character's name. There was no profile picture, but that was typical since he sometimes uses his real name online too. I added the person thinking that if it wasn't him, he'd simply reject my request or message me asking how we knew each other. When he accepted my request without asking who I was, I assumed it was him. This seemed confirmed when I started messaging him in late February. From then until now, we've exchanged over 900 messages. I picked up the conversation where we had left off, saying it was good to see him back, that I had been thinking about him and was about to email him, but now I could just chat on Facebook, etc. He greeted me warmly, and when I sent him a YouTube video I thought he'd like, he proceeded to discuss it with me. He was a bit less articulate than I remembered, but not so much that it was noticeable except in hindsight. I think his incoherence isn't as obvious to me in French since it's not my native language. It was weird, but that was normal. In April, he returned to Facebook under the fictional character's name. We added each other and started chatting on Facebook. I would talk to both accounts interchangeably. They were never online at the same time, so I'd talk to whichever was available. Again, I noticed something was off with Joel. He would say things that didn't make sense and then refuse to explain them when I told him I was confused. He used flirty and affectionate terms that made me uncomfortable. He made many typos that made it hard to follow his train of thought. Only later did I realize that all the typos, cryptic statements, and flirting happened when I was talking to the Joel with the real name, not when I was talking to the fictional character's account. Likewise, all the more legitimate interactions happened with the fictional character's account, like when he gave me his address to send the DVD. He was also kinder on that account. I had some unpleasant arguments only with the Joel with the real name, but I didn't notice at the time because there seemed to be continuity between the two accounts. We discussed the same topics on both, and while the speech patterns were somewhat different, more lucid and friendly on the fictional character account, there were also notable similarities. For instance, both used Italian expressions. The real name Joel called me Bella Ragazza in a flirty way, which made me a bit uncomfortable. The fictional character, while mocking a Roberto Alagna album cover, called him Bruto Uomo. Both used the phrase no problemo at various times, and both complained about the far right in France. Everything seemed seamless until it didn't. On Saturday, I saw the real name Joel online and started chatting with him, asking if he'd heard about everything that had happened that week in the United States. When I mentioned marriage equality, he got very homophobic, which shocked me because I knew him to be a decent person. We had discussed non-binary gender before, but homophobic slurs and such direct hostility caught me off guard. I started arguing with him and he became very hostile, saying nonsensical and paranoid things like, "If I come to your city, you'll hide with your friends so you don't show your face at the supermarket," and telling me to stop talking to him. None of this made sense to me, given our 4-year history and his affectionate behavior in the past. So I asked, "So, are we not friends anymore?" Trying to understand what was going on. He replied that friendship means nothing on the internet, which I found strange because we met in real life in the summer of 2011 and had planned to see each other again last year, but he had been out of town. A little while later, I saw the fictional character Joel had liked and commented on one of my photos. Another thing I only realized in hindsight was that all the likes and comments were from the fictional character, not the real name Joel. I went to the Facebook chat and only the real name Joel was online. I asked him why he was liking my stuff when he had just told me to stop talking to him, furious. He replied that he hadn't liked anything. "Where do you see my name?" he said. "Well, not your real name, the fictional character's name." He replied, "So what?" and told me to go to hell. At that point, I was utterly confused. What the hell was going on? Was he having a dissociative episode? I decided to talk to the real name Joel when he came online again to see how he behaved with me, and if he was civil, confront him about his behavior on that account. He came online early in the morning and I hurried to talk to him, deeply unsettled and dying of curiosity. "Hey, can I talk to you? It's urgent," I said. "Urgent, sure. What's going on?" "So when I was talking to the real name Joel, you're the only person I'm talking to, right? Are you that man?" And I sent him the link to the Facebook page, to which he replied, "No, absolutely not. In fact, I don't have a Facebook account under my real name. That person just has the same name as me." He confirmed that he had only returned to Facebook since April, just when the fictional character's account reappeared. He was quite distressed to learn that I had been talking to this guy for 4 months, thinking it was him, and even more distressed to learn that this guy was an asshole and that I had thought, even for a moment, that he was too. You're probably wondering how it took me so long to figure it out, and all I can say is that because I assumed the real name Joel and the fictional character were the same person, it never occurred to me that they weren't. The idea that they were the same person was the null hypothesis, and the idea that they weren't, that the real name Joel was pretending, was so incredibly absurd that it never crossed my mind. Not even once. You're probably still wondering how I could have assumed the real name Joel was my friend when he gave so many clues that he wasn't. And I have to remind you of the extent to which he just went along with everything I said. I would talk about specific things related to my friend, things that shouldn't have made any sense to the man I now call Fake Joel, and he acted like he knew what I was talking about. The idea that he was lying, pretending, or delusional was unbelievably absurd. I was the toughest kid in my high school, or at least I thought I was. I was a bully and I believed I controlled the entire school. I was tall for my age, broad-shouldered, and my voice was loud enough to scare anyone. Younger students would step aside when they saw me coming down the hallway. I liked picking on the quiet, shy kids who never fought back. It made me feel powerful, like I was the king of the school. One day, during the second week of the new school year, I noticed a new kid in my class. He was small and thin, wore glasses, and his backpack seemed too big for him. Just by looking at him, I knew he'd be my next target. His name was Sam, and he had just moved here from another city. He looked nervous, always staring at the ground and never making eye contact. To me, that was a clear sign of weakness. "Hey, new kid," I shouted at him during lunch, walking over to where Sam was sitting alone. "Why are you sitting by yourself? Are you scared to make friends?" Sam looked up, surprised. I just moved here," he said quietly. "I don't know anyone yet." I smiled. "Well, I'm Jack, and you can be my friend, but only if you do what I say." Sam nodded, relieved. He had no idea what kind of friend I would be. Over the next few days, I made Sam do a lot of things for me. I had him carry my heavy backpack, even though he struggled with it. I took his lunch money, leaving him with nothing to eat. I made him do my homework, threatening to beat him up if he didn't do it right. Everyone at school saw what was happening, but no one stepped in to help Sam. They were all too scared of me. Sam, too afraid to stand up for himself, did everything I told him. He thought that if he just complied, I'd eventually leave him alone. But I didn't. I enjoyed having someone to boss around. Then, weird things started happening to me. At first, it was small stuff. One day, after gym class, I found my locker open and my books scattered all over the floor. Another day, my favorite jacket went missing, only to reappear the next day covered in mud. I thought maybe someone was playing a prank on me, but then things got worse. One afternoon, as I was walking home from school, I had a strange feeling that someone was following me. I kept hearing footsteps, but every time I turned around, no one was there. I started walking faster, my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, I heard a noise from the bushes, and before I knew it, someone grabbed me from behind and pushed me to the ground. I tried to fight back, but my attacker was too strong and too fast. They didn't say anything, just landed a few punches before running off. I got up feeling bruised and confused. Who could have done this? I didn't think I had any enemies who would be brave enough to attack me. I decided not to tell anyone. I didn't want people to think I was weak, but that wasn't the end. The next day, I found a note in my locker. It was written in big, messy letters. "Watch your back." I crumpled up the note and tossed it in the trash, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The attacks continued. Sometimes someone would shove me in the hallway when no one was looking or trip me, making me fall. It was getting serious. I'd walk home alone and someone would attack me, wearing a hood so I couldn't see their face. No matter how much I tried to defend myself, the attacker was always too fast and strong. I started to feel scared, really scared. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me. I was supposed to be the one scaring people, not the other way around. At school, I became more aggressive, taking out my frustration on anyone who came near. I stopped picking on Sam or anyone else. I was too focused on figuring out who was attacking me, but no one seemed to know anything. It was like my attacker was a ghost, appearing and disappearing without a trace. One night, after yet another attack, I sat in my room staring at my bruised face in the mirror. I'd had enough. I needed to know who was doing this and why. So I decided to set a trap. The next day, I pretended to walk home as usual, but then I ran and hid behind a tree, watching the street. I waited a long time. Just when I was about to give up, I saw a figure walking down the path, looking around as if searching for someone. My heart started pounding. This was it. I stepped out from behind the tree and confronted the figure. "Who are you? Why are you following me?" I demanded, trying to sound brave even though my voice was shaking. The figure turned to look at me and pulled down their hood. My eyes widened in shock. Standing in front of me was my own older brother, Axel. Axel was 2 years older than me and had already graduated from high school. He was much stronger than I was and always had a serious expression on his face. "Axel? What are you doing?" I asked, stepping back. Axel crossed his arms and looked at me with disappointment. "I heard what you've been doing, Jack. Bullying kids, making their lives miserable. I thought that if someone gave you a taste of your own medicine, you'd stop." I stared at him, my mind racing. You did this? You were the one attacking me?" Axel nodded. "Yeah, I did. I wanted you to know what it feels like to be scared all the time, to feel like you can't even walk home without being afraid." I felt a wave of shame wash over me. I had never thought about how my actions made others feel. I was always so focused on feeling powerful that I didn't care about the pain I was causing. Now I understood. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, staring at my feet. "I didn't mean to, Axel sighed, his expression softening. He stepped closer and put his hand on my shoulder. "I know, Jack, but you need to understand that what you do affects people. It's not too late to change, be better. Be someone people look up to, not someone they fear." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I'd always admired Axel. I admired him for his strength and confidence. Now I realized I had been trying to be like him in the wrong way. "I'm going to change, Axel, I promise," I said sincerely. From that day on, I kept my promise. I stopped bullying others and even apologized to Sam, who cautiously accepted my apology. I worked hard to be a better person, someone my brother could be proud of. It wasn't easy, but every time I felt the urge to intimidate someone, I remembered what it felt like to be on the other side, and I never wanted to feel that way again.